unavoidable need for transformation of the HR processes, along with the digitalization and the evidence-based and data-driven decision-making. We will tackle during this conference many topics that challenge the people management in the organizations.
I would like to in particular mention one thing which I think is important for today's theme of this conference on human resources and digitalization. And this is the EU support for the Youth Guarantee in North Macedonia through a wider EU for Youth program. This EU for Youth program is implemented between 2020 and 2022 and supports the government of North Macedonia in improving the employment of young women and men. It addresses one of the main social problems of North Macedonia and of the Balkan region as a whole, youth unemployment and youth migration. It provides more opportunities in terms of job creation and vocational and educational training. It invests in the vocational qualification, skills and preparedness of young people to enter the labor market, and it supports the transition from school to work through the Youth Guarantee Scheme for young people who are neither in employment nor in education or training. It's been quite a success, the Youth Guarantee, receiving a high-level priority within the government, but also becoming part of the 2020 Economic and Investment Plan of the EU for the whole of the Western Balkans. And as such, the success of North Macedonia in this Youth Guarantee has drawn attention across other countries in the region as well.
I was filled with joy when I read your interview prior to the conference. Let me just quote part of it. These are Ivan's words. I am impressed with limited resources and being a relatively small association and country, you produce value for members and others far beyond what can be expected. In fact, when we in HR Norge had a strategy seminar and went through the post, what can we learn from others? I put up the Macedonian flag on the big screen and said, look, we cannot always ask for more resources. If there is something we want to bring through, look to Macedonia. Our sister association there is close to best in class in Europe on deliveries compared to resources. They are great. Ivan, do you still share this impression?
Definitely. I'm so impressed by you, not only on this event, but on a long-term basis. What you deliver is really, really, really impressive. And I also think that what HR has delivered all through Europe during COVID has been really, really impressive. We have done a remarkably good job. We have made our classical tasks, but we have also prepared for the future. If you ask the owners of the airline company, he or she will say it's about earning money. The mayor of the municipality will say it's about building infrastructure into our community. If you ask employees, it's about workplaces, joy of work, safety, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, if you ask the lions, they will say it's about shade. My point is that if we are to do HR, we must know for whom and what we are going to deliver to them. We are not doing HR for the sake of HR. We are doing it for someone else. What is the purpose of HR? Nick Hawley puts it this way: the purpose of HR is not to do HR, but to build the capability of the organization to deliver its strategy and create sustainable value, whether that is for shareholders, customers, patients, taxpayers, society, or recipients of charity. And the most important word here is capability. It's about potential for deliveries, and it's about effect. How we deliver that capability is, open to us.
Before I spoke about being data-driven, people analytics. I think last year someone spoke about people analytics on this conference. People analytics over time, people analytics has been very important for a lot of larger organizations. I think over time you see automation impacting people analytics more and more, where most of the analytics will become automated in 5 or in 10 years, and probably already in 5 years. You can ask a system, and some systems already allow for it today. Actually, you ask the system a question, it scans the data, it looks for anomalies, and then gives you the answer back. So the skill of asking, knowing which question to ask the system becomes much more important than actually the skill of doing the analysis, because the analysis will be automated at some point to a large extent.
Survival is very important, and survival is the main principle that the brain applies in whatever change it is happening. The reason why we do not like change, all of us, and I'm absolute on that, all of us, we don't like change, let's be honest, not in the same way, not in a similar way, obviously, but all of us, we don't like change, is because threats are survival instincts, our safety, our comfort zone, in other words. So the brain, the first usually negative reaction to a change that is happening in an organization, in particular, most probably will be negative because of that. So we need to understand that. The second thing that it is very also important to understand is the distinction between threats and rewards. Threats are stronger than the rewards. Have that in mind. Threats are related to a specific stress on hormone, which is called cortisol. Whenever you feel threatened, stressed, you are full of cortisol. Cortisol stays there for some time, and you need to relax in order to be able to think clearly. Cortisol is very important for our performance, especially what kind of performance? Performance that we need to react now. We don't have time to think, but we need to have instant reactions, like a crisis, for example, like a period of time that, we don't have the luxury to evaluate, analyze, collect information, etc. Rewards, on the other hand, are weaker than threats. However, are absolutely necessary as well. They are related to another very important neurotransmitter. I think all of us, we know, it is called dopamine. Okay, the paradoxical aspect of dopamine is that you feel the highest levels of dopamine not when you receive the reward, just a moment before you receive it.
Many producers of contents for learning we call bite size because you have to subdivide the content in small bite or chunks because our brain like to acquire just a small bite of information and not just bite, but bite connected. So you have to create a material that is divided, but also you have to create the connection between the various bytes. So it is easiest to store information if you acquire them in a small bite. This is what happened when we listen songs or we see commercial or movie that there is a piece of a song that is repeated and it is very short and it has it evokes images, so a story, and we sing that song. I hope well. It is not my case, but singing, it is a way of repeating and then memorizing, and this is why most of us memorize in an easy way songs, because they are composed with the neuro learning principles.
I think next steps, Andriana might talk a little bit about those in a second, but one thing that I would like to put across is that, and similarly, there's no one size fits all for the circular HRM model. There would be bits and pieces or large parts of it that are applicable in certain circumstances. But I think it's the intent to try, the intent to strive towards the implementation of the totality of the model is what we're trying to move towards next steps. And then we, as more companies realize they're already doing some of these things already and label them as such, and as more organizations begin to implement it, we'll learn more lessons. The model will learn more lessons and have more examples to provide. Adriana, you might have some thoughts on that.
We also moved from the research, and we moved into the area of developing specific training modules for HR managers on how to apply these principles in their respective organizations and companies. We, as a consortium, as a partnership of 7 European Union organizations and 1 from a new candidate country, we developed training material modules. We also developed an e-learning platform.
The burnout issue is very, very big. I would not focus only on one thing that can do a burnout. Every person is different, so the burnout for every person is individual. So for somebody that is very dynamic and want to do, let's say, multitasking and etc., a lot of different kind of tasks will not do a burnout to this kind of person. But with a person that is not so has an easy pace and want to do things one by one, a lot of tasks that are different can do a burnout. This is an issue that should be in Macedonia, should be looked more focusedly. Why I'm saying this? Because we have seen through our assessment centers that the point of anxiety and depression in the previous 2 years are raised due to the pandemic. So we are very more sensitive to the burnout subject.
The world has moved on from tabulating machines and desktop PCs. Today, IBM's business is all about artificial intelligence, quantum computing, cloud technology. Like many organizations, we've had to learn how to reinvent ourselves. In fact, we describe ourselves as a 110-year-old tech startup. As a business in the tech industry, we've got to predict where the world is going, and we've got to adapt. And I would argue that each generation of HR professionals, all of you on this call, need to look at the future, how the world is changing, how technology is changing, how culture and society is changing, and we've got to adapt. We've got to reinvent the HR function so that we remain relevant today. And I think that's the challenge of this conference. How do we reinvent ourselves as HR professionals?
How to balance technology and human access?
This is a very good question, and I would say it depends on the organization. In organizations where work is more repetitive, like call centers, outsourcing centers, I think that focus on technology should be bigger, because the tasks are repetitive and the employees are doing, let's say, similar or the same job over and over again. Thus, it's more easier to grade their productivity and the things they're doing. While on the other hand, in our business, the tasks differ significantly. So one day you're doing secondary research, the second day you're talking to an expert for 4 or 5 hours. Thus, I would say in our business, it's more difficult to put higher emphasis on technology. So we need to put more emphasis on the human side of HR. But in companies, which I said are large sales teams or call centers, technology can play significant role.
Even without augmented reality or virtual reality, we do cooperate with the university, with the technical schools, high schools, because we do believe that educating and supporting all the educational organization will provide us better future, more skilled and more educated people who will have much easier, let's say, onboarding period into our companies.
The thing that we need to do is to underpin and develop the capability of our HR people on their professional journey. So, you know, it's important that we have a proper and wide-ranging qualifications for HR people, just as they do in other functions. You know, there are some very, very clear skill needs here that need developing within the profession. And this will all be dynamic. You've made the point, there's not going to be a 5-year plan here. This is very dynamic. We will find things, you know, COVID has come along and caused all these paradigm shifts, but something else will come along. So, you know, the level of agility that we as HR professionals have to show is very high. And I think, to be fair, during COVID, you know, I'm particularly proud of HR professionals around the world because they really have stepped up to the mark. They've dealt with some incredible challenges, and we all, you know, we need to congratulate ourselves for the level of expertise we've demonstrated. But this is in the here and now. We have to look to the future and develop these skills as well.
We don't have a crystal ball, so we cannot say what are now the critical skill set, the IT, analytics, big data, that's the way to go, that's what we know. But what I see as HR, that we need to really coordinate well and work together with business on strategic workforce planning to basically define what are those actually skill sets which are required. Talent management should definitely be structured no longer about the jobs, but rather about the skills or the future skill sets that are coming in front of us.
HR people must demonstrate to be able to become strategic and not to stay in a kind of staff and relatively quiet position. So this is the le défi, comme they say in France, and I think that this is really a unique opportunity, but also HR managers have to change their mindset if they want to grasp this opportunity.
HR needs to take strong initiatives, even disruptive ones, to support the leadership in navigating the organization. Starting from ourselves, starting from HR, we may need to upskill and reskill for leaders of all levels. But I think it is not only about the learning and development, and it is not only about upskilling or reskilling the leaders or the employees, but I think it also needs a complete review about the leaders' fit for today and the future.
In the past several months, some of the hot topics in HR in Serbia primarily, which we've heard from the members, were primarily in the fields of recruitment and onboarding, how to address these changes which were posed to us in the past year or two with the sudden shift in technology and simply all the changes which are happening to us, and many companies have tried to shift some innovative ways of recruitment from the let's say old-fashioned collection of CVs and cover letters. Many of them do implement some video applications and video interviews in the first stages of the whole interviewing process.
What we are working on as association today is we see the same challenges with leadership in the crisis. We have seen some managers reacting very adequately and being very adaptable and showing very good change management skills. And we have seen those with panic attacks and not knowing what to do with their teams and not knowing what to react. So we had the 3 lockdowns, pretty soft ones, but we have seen all kind of reaction. I personally believe that the impact of this crisis will take years, and we will see the HR managers turning into internal company psychologists also over the time. We see very high digitalization and more robots and solutions like that coming into industry.
The most rapid change that occurred in previous years and still presents a challenge is remote work, which you already mentioned today. Not in terms of how it will be organized, because I think that HR did really the best job to manage everything in the best possible way when COVID situation appeared, but in terms of how to provide the right flexibility to employees without losing the accountability. And when we think of remote work, we have 3 questions that I want to emphasize. First of all, the engagement of employees who work remotely. The second, the digitization of many HR processes in order to be able to hire and manage talents remotely. And third, there is the question that Milica introduced so nice in her speech, mental health. So some of the solutions here maybe to focus much more on short-term results rather than setting long-term and hard attainable goals for employees. The second one is to put a lot of effort into bettering the communication between employees. And third is to give a real-time feedback.
There was a tremendous development, at least with the Macedonian organizations, the Macedonian companies. They have all, not all, but many of them have developed. The Macedonian ones have understood that the importance of having dedicated people in human resources management in their organizations on one hand, and have adopted positive practices from the foreign companies, which came with already established HR systems from their mother companies on the other hand. This is especially visible in adopting practices concerning sourcing, as for example, internship programs, trainees, scholarship practices, in the employer branding as well as in the recognized necessity to invest, especially in the soft skills of the managing staff.